Oh, 1 second. Okay, this is Re-Consecrating the Underworld with Orion Foxwood. All right, Orion, you are up. Go ahead. I am your moderator. Orion, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Okay, let me try and get him again. Gotta love technology.
I don't like Mercury. I just want to say that. And for some reason, the computer completely shut down when we went to start the camera. So he's going right back in.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I just take a deep breath. It's just another day in tech. I was in bleeding edge technology for over 25 years. Hey, nothing smoking. It's a good day. I have stories. They do involve fire and they do involve
IT stuff, but IT stuff and I have a mixed relationship. I think it taunts me.
All right.
The gods of the internet are not particular. They are very mischievous. They really are.
I'll tell you what, on the website, the schedule, everything looks wonderful.
Oh, thanks so much.
I know what kind of work goes into that too.
We have a really great media coordinator.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful to hear you say, you know.
I absolutely agree. You have a stellar lineup and you've done a stellar job in a very challenging set of stuff. So kudos to you folks, really kudos.
I have so much respect for organizations like yours during this, the whole COVID thing and having to shift all of a sudden into whole new models, you know. And the pagan community has been really, I think, the pagan organizations really the most flexible, you know. But we're kind of used to that, aren't we?
Okay, I think we're
about to go in.
Oop, oop.
Oh, I'm gonna hang out because I think I'm getting feedback.
Yep, okay. Ooh, that was squeaky.
And Fox.
Okay, great. Yay!
How are you?
Great. Looks fabulous. I love your background.
I look a little far away though. Let me come up close. You're too pretty to be so far away. This will be like running across the field in one of those romance movies, you know. There we go. Ooh, why's my face look so red?
Awesome. All right, so everyone, this is Orion Foxwood, and we are going to be working on Re-Consecrating the Underworld. I am your moderator. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, feel free to drop them in the chat. And we will pause periodically to answer questions. All right, I'm going to mute now.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody, and good morning to you, and happy Pride. So it's wonderful to be here. Uh, I want to start this workshop really with, as I talk about reconsecrating the underworld, looking at the real role of the pagan community in the larger scheme of things. As you probably noticed, and I say that tongue in cheek, we are in a time of great change. Um, Things are being shook up, and many of us, our spirits, our prophecies have told us that the time would come. And I remember that song years ago. What was it? This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and they made it sound like age of Aquarius would start, and there'd be skittles coming out of the air, and children rushing up over a grassy knoll, singing, "I'd like to teach the world to sing," something like that, something utopic. But what it left out, the fine print in that was to move into a new era. We have to let go of much of the old one. You know, Wayne Dyer, who was a wonderful human consciousness pioneer, who's deceased now, but he left us with this wonderful quote: "To attain the higher, you must release the lower and be like a cork on water." The way a cork, boop, just when you let go of it, pops right up to the top of the water. Well, we're the corks. And right now, the overall global community has to unpack. It has to unpack. And by unpacking, I mean, there's a quote in a book, some of you may have heard Zora Neale Hurston. She is one of my sheroes. She wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, Of Mules and Men. She was a colleague with Langston Hughes, an incredible woman in the 40s who was ballsy and tough, writing about voodoo, writing about all kinds of things, at a time when a woman, as it were, speaking with such power was a challenge, a Black woman. She was incredible. Well, in her book, The Sanctified Church, she says, sometimes people can be slave ships in shoes. Isn't that a haunting comment? Sometimes people can be slave ships in shoes. Now, my version of that is all of us, to some degree, are haunted houses. Now, what do I mean? I see some heads going, say amen, right? And the haunted houses are actually not to harm us, meaning the haunts that we have. Those are the shadows of the past. Now, I grew up as a Southern Appalachian boy, and we tell everything in stories. So you'll probably get stories throughout the course of this workshop. And we have little sayings. And so one of those sayings is, you cannot bless the fruits and curse the roots. And I'll say that again, you cannot bless the fruits and curse the roots. Now, where do we come in this global change? Where do we come in the concept of blessing the roots so we can bless the fruits? And to explain that, and I'm sure for most of you it's self-explanatory, but you cannot harm the roots, toxify the roots. And anyone on here who's grown plants, talking to pagans, probably all of you, if you're a green lover like me, yeah. If the roots aren't attended to, if the soil is not good, there won't be a foundation. The plant won't grow. It won't get that luscious blossoming and leaves, you know. If you've ever seen any plant when it takes root, when a seed is sprouting, you ever notice it doesn't it doesn't open up its little chitmus, its little outer protein coat, right? It doesn't open that up and then send a sprout straight up. Never. It first sends a sprout down. And there's a real powerful mystery in that. And that is that we must be anchored in a nutritious understanding of the self. We must reach deep into all that who we are is to become. You see, we are emergent beings. Right now, you're only sort of kind of here. Some of you is here, not all of you, meaning you're emergent, you're still arriving. You know, we talk about being born. Really, being born into flesh is the big born, right? That's the one where we arrive here at the zip code called Earth. But every day of our life, sometimes every moment, we're borning. You know, I always say the Big Bang, when we talk about the Big Bang is still banging. That's so deliciously naughty. But the Big Bang is still banging. meaning this explosion of creativity in emergent, unfolding patterns, ever arriving patterns of beauty and revelation. You're a part of that. Did you know that this is so cool? All of the iron in the universe, no exception, all of it comes from extinct stars. And yep, all of it. That's the only way iron is made. Now, think about this, including the iron in your blood right now. The iron in your blood right now is from stars that went extinct billions, well, not billions, maybe millions of years ago. So I wrote this little ditty a couple of years ago because I got so fascinated with that. The concept of all the times we've looked up at the stars, right? And wondered, maybe we got fixed on one. And have you ever done that? I have, where one will just grab my attention. I just keep looking at it. And I'll think, am I from there? Well, then maybe that same star is looking down at you going, have I become them? So the little ditty I wrote was, we are stars with human feet, encountering starlight and all we meet. Know this, grow this, and ignite. And the stars will guide you through the darkest night. I want to say that slow. There's some explanation. We are stars with human feet. That's not just symbolic. Our iron is of the stars. Got another little piece to add to that. Did you know, and this is a recent finding, 50% of the water on this planet is older than the solar system, older than the sun. Is that cool? Does that give you goosebumps or what? 50%. Do you know what this means, beautiful ones? 50% of the water in you right now is from before the sun was born. We are old, very old, millions of years, if the truth be told. I think we look pretty good for that age. What do you think? We haven't fossilized yet. We haven't, nothing like that. Although some mornings I wonder, but so I'm saying all of these things to say we literally are eternity with human feet. We are gestational creatures, ever arriving from a universe with infinite calibration. Did you know that the word universe, fascinating word, I don't know about you, but I'm really interested in etymology, because etymology is like, well, excuse this metaphor. It's like lifting the skirt or kilt, looking under. It's really getting into the private aspect of a word. Each word has traditions. It has a lineage, a life, Did you know then that, look at the etymology of universe, it comes from una versa, one song. How cool is that? One song, una versa. So we are a note in this celestial choir. We are something that is the contemplation of stars, and we are also the hope of the ancestors made manifest. I can prove this. The soil. The soil is made of the digested wisdom of everything that's ever lived. The instructions for how our DNA will further inform our form, right? You see, the instructions can be there in the DNA, but if there's no way for the body to know what mineral, what thing, what components go into making us up, well, then it means we're just this sort of soul wandering around without a body. But somehow there is a knowledge in our body, independent of the DNA, old, comes in with us, that we must eat the earth to stay on earth. Every food thing that you eat comes from the earth. All of the plants are incredible, y'all, because the plants take the celestial influence of the heavens and then the ancestral wisdom of below, not just the nutrients, but the actual wisdom in the liminal places of the land. And they combine these things within us or within them. And then we eat them and they give us vitamins. Vitamins comes from the words vitaminos or vita, really. V's in proper Latin are pronounced wa, you know, like a W. In Catholic Latin, they pronounce the va because it sounds prettier. Like Ave Maria sounds a lot prettier than Ave Maria. So the etymology of all of this is an important thing to know. If there's one song, and that song is ever arriving, and there's a big bang, being an explosion of a coming into being. Ladies, I got another piece of cool information for you. This is so cool. Talk about how grand the goddess is. So for close to 20 years in my workshops, when I teach fairy seership, I've been teaching that, and this is based on the revealed information between my fairy contact and wife and myself, that in the beginning, in fact, close your eyes a second, go with me to this ancient memory inside you. In the beginning, there was nothing. Peaceful, undivided, still. Feel the silence of the great nothingness rise inside you now. You were born from it. I was born from it. It is the undergirding reality of everything. Forever be mindful that though sound is the beginning of creation, silence is the beginning of power. In the great nothingness, the holy and formless fire that abides in the depths of the universe, brooded, dreamed, like any artist that has an artistic ability and is aware of it, it seeks inspiration to bring what's inside of it out. It is the source. Just like certain days when it's rainy outside, we sit at the window, and we look out, and we're like, I want to do something, but I don't want to get my hair wet. Of course, that's a real issue for me. I don't know what I want to do. And then sometimes it's like, I can't figure out what I want to do, but I know there's something inside of me that wants to go, I don't know, shopping or go have fun, do something. And we go, let's sigh. The universe did this. I should say the pre-universe. And everything was born out of the desire to know what was within it. You see, the source, if nothing else, is a romanticist. Oh, definitely a romanticist and an artist. However, the all that is, the great nothingness, opening its mouth, creating the primordial black hole and breathing out, there's nowhere else for it to go. It is it. Always reminds me of how, you know, when you want to, like you've been eating garlic or something, you got to go to an event and you want to check your breath and go, okay, does my breath smell garlicky? And we put our hand up to our mouth, right? Like that. And that, so we can see what our breath smells like. But that kind of happened for the universe. It went, but there was nowhere for it to go. So wind or breath turned upon wind, which ignited the first star that was ever lit on the altar of heaven. And plasmatic pulse was born, the star father, what many people call God. The great breathing forth from the great utterance, that's the primal goddess. Now you'll see legends of this show up in other traditions, right? Where they speak of a primordial goddess who masturbates herself, and then the universe is born. I borrow from Roman tradition. They have a goddess. I love this name. It's a name for Physis, right? But the name is Protogenea. Isn't that beautiful? Protogenea, the firstborn. And when they speak of her, this primordial goddess, they say, she who begets but was never begotten, O motherless, fatherless one. And that breath breathed forth being and ignited and ignited and ignited all the way until it reached what became you. There's no new energy in the universe. You were there. Maybe not in the combination you are now. And so why in the world would the universe earthize itself? Why would it humanize itself? Notice the choice of words. You see, the fairy tradition, folkloric fairy tradition, which is what I borrow a lot of my teachings, my foundational teachings from, is an animistic tradition. It's very old. If you know anything about the different sort of approaches to spirituality, the general philosophies, animism is the oldest. You've got animism, pantheism, polytheism, monotheism. Really, there are no monotheisms alive right now. I know some of the religions think that they're a monotheism, but they can't be. You can't have a devil, you can't have angels, you can't have none of that. Only one who ever tried to do was Akhenaten, King Tut's father. It didn't work out so well. It did work out too well, because in a true monotheism, there's only the one, you know. My mama seemed to understand it. She had so much Appalachian wisdom. She one day told me, she said, we were talking about God and the devil and hell and all that. She just looks at me and goes, well, God is hell. God's the devil too. And I was a little boy, right? I'm like, what? What do you mean? And she says, honey, what is it you don't get about omni? She says, God, or all that is everything. So it's you and me too. Now, another way to look at this is, and this brings about a healing, I think, when we think of death. And right now, dealing with COVID and the new strains, I think death is on our minds a lot. I know I had a family member die a couple of weeks ago from Delta, so it's painfully on my mind. Well, nothing truly dies, though. And that we have to rest our knowing. We have to grieve the loss of familiar form. But nothing ever dies. There's no new energy in the universe. It just migrates into other shapes. I want to do a little like a exercise with you to tap into that for a minute, to tap into all that you've ever been. And then we'll tap into emergent reality and why this workshop is called what it's called. And that is that the undercountry, that's one word for the underworld, is the salve of the soul. It is the undercountry. The underworld is the dark goddess, not the dark goddess lives in the underworld. It is the dark goddess, the one who boils down the illusions and in the end creates Taliesin. All of us are little Christuses, little Taliesins waiting to happen. Now, of course, if you follow Swami Rupal, Swami Rupal says, the famous drag queen, we are all art waiting to happen. We are art waiting to happen. In fact, we came here with a vision, with a purpose. Here's something I kind of throw out to you to work on, okay? You knew why you came here. You knew when you arrived what it was that prompted you, what was the vital pulse that pulsed you from the invisible all the way to the genetic stream to the visible. You got here by your own will. Now, that's a very different way of looking at things. Because people say, it's God's will. Well, what do you think you are? You're a finger, I'm a finger on the hands of the source, right? We are the source becoming human, becoming you. And there was something in the mind of the source itself that said, as it contemplated, I wonder what would happen if I Orionize myself. I wonder what would happen if I put your name in there. Our journey through life is to unearth the original pulse behind our existence. Now, up to 7 years old, you knew why you came. And here's where the hints are to find it. Think back to what you like to pretend to be. Think back to the things that animated you, that brought you more life, that brought you to life. Now, I had a revelation on this some years ago. When I was a little boy, I'd go up to visit my sister. My sister lived outside of Paw Paw, West Virginia. Yes, there's a place called Paw Paw. And there was a creek down the road. I think I'll try to say it like other, but creek. My mouth does weird things when I try to say it that way. A creek, a creek, a stream. And this stream had a fossil bed in the bottom of it. I love nothing more than to go fossil hunting. And still to this day, if I ever come out y'all's way and you know a fossil bed, take me. I love it. So I would walk for hours. Mom and Dad didn't need no babysitter. They had one, the creek, finding these fossils, looking down in the primordial waters to find clues to our ancient past and to bring them home as treasures of a living memory of the earth. Now, here I am. I'm a 58-year-old witch doing teaching out and about. One of the things I teach about is the river of blood, the stream of human ancestral consciousness. I'm still in that same river, finding the fossils, look to your past, find your diaries, your pictures that you doodled and drew. Maybe you got some of the ones you gave your mom and dad. In all of these things will be the reason that you came here. I would bet that you are already on the bulk of your path right now. Think about this. All right. Here's why we are here, the pagans, and then you're a part of this. Think about paganism, y'all. To bring paganism back, we had to unearth thousands of years, at least 2,000 years of quieted voices, gods buried under the rubble of global genocide. And the truth be told, the destruction of paganism and the attack on witches in the Inquisition was the largest genocide in the history of the world. Because you got to go across all of those countries, all of that long period of time. We're not talking tens of years. We're talking about hundreds of years. Now let's look at you and I. We were called to become what we've become now. We were called by a voice that made no sense. Think of it. I bet most of us, we kind of knew we wanted to become witches or pagans or something like that very early because things weren't sounding right. Something wasn't fitting for us. What it was we were responding to something bigger, something that had started happening in the mid-1800s. In the mid-1800s, we saw things like Eliphas Levi, and then we saw what Golden Dawn, and then Crowley, and then Wicca, and then, I mean, it goes on and on and on. It was as if something was volcanically arriving out of human consciousness. I call it the co-creative call to action. The ancestors, human and other, were shaking the tree of humanity because they have far-seeing sight, especially the exalted ones. And they could see where we were going in this post-industrial culture, where we were drifting into an illusion of isolation. And somehow those ancestors from the deepest parts of us shook that tree until there were volcanic eruptions of consciousness happening, until we found ourselves summoned to mine out the silenced voices of old gods and goddesses who were born at the foundations of humanity. Now, you want to hear something powerful? Some years ago, I was at Feast of Lights, which is a gathering up in New England, part of the Earth Spirit community. I've been going for years. And this man came, he was brought by Andres Corbin, and his name was Wande Abembala. Wande is the international spokesperson on traditional Yoruban religion for the world. This man meets with popes. And so Wande comes in, he was beautiful in his traditional garb, has his wife with him. She was queenly. So he comes in and he sits down and he said something that I hope this feeds you the way it feeds me. He looked around the room and it looked like it snowed. There was so many white faces, right? And he just looks around and he gets a tear in his eyes. And he says, my Orisha, my elders, my ancestors, we bow our head before you at this time to honor you, you who have the courage to unearth the silenced and the suffering, because we took on some of the suffering too. Because as you unearth this, people have asked me over the years, why is there witch wars sometimes? Why is it these clashes that might happen? I said, honey, don't you understand? When the wounded is a co-unearthing this along with the wounded, and we're unearthing the wounded, right? There's going to be some adjustments. We're going to be redeeming through ourselves some of that pain. It's holy work. So he started crying because he said, long before the horrors had visited our shores, they had already been to yours. He said, this infection of human consciousness that caused us to begin to disconnect from the great goddess, the earth, from the ancient tribal wisdoms, the connective forces of it all. He said it had visited you and had already killed your holy people as it made its way from one continent to the next, a side effect of a rapidly growing nervous system, and that's all it was. And what he said that got me, he said, your gods and your people, your ancestral gods and ancestral people, he said, they were attacked and destroyed, and their wisdom pushed into the land. And you had the courage to hear the call to unearth it. Martin Luther King has a saying that I always loved: the truth pressed to earth shall rise again. My witch queen used to teach me, no wisdom leaves the world, meaning nothing can be lost. The earth remembers it all. So on days you're maybe, you're feeling down, or you feel like, what's this all really worth? What's it all about? It's about everything, honeys. People like us are probably going to be the ones that help save the world. I really, really love you, and I really love us. I want you to think of how courageous. We were the ultimate fool card, because the fool card, it shows this androgynous being. I'm loving you, Andrea. I'm loving you. There's this androgynous, it looks like a boy, but it could be a girl. That's what I love about the whole image. And this youngin' has got a backpack, right? The hobo's backpack, which has all his extracted wisdom from the previous life, right? Then it's the little dog's biting at his heels going, don't do it, don't do it. It could be the ego, it could be the instinctual self, because he's stepping off a cliff. So the dog's going, don't do it. But she is looking to the heavens, eyes fixed on the heavens, because those eyes are going, my faith, my everything is you. I will descend into form with this directive that you give me, and steps off the cliff onto the cloud of unknowing, falls into form. We are all that sacred fool. But what is different is there was a time when we could all afford to not remember who and what we are. This is not that time. I also believe that all of us who are earth religionists, all of us who have been unearthing this ancient magic and these ancient wisdoms, we knew why we came. I came because I'm nosy. I knew there was going to be changes and I want to be a part of it, And the truth is, I am in love with this planet. And I'll get back to this once I get new hips. Right now, I got to get hip replacement. But before that, before the hips went bad, I used to get down on the earth every morning, except real cold winters, because I didn't want my lips to stick to anything. You know, I would get down and kiss the land. And the reason I did this, I love being on earth. I love being of earth. We have the most profound, beautiful planet. And I think now, as we're reaching out into the cosmos, which is our destiny, it's always been our destiny to boldly go, as Gene Roddenberry says. I think we'll find incredible worlds, but I don't think we'll ever find a world with the diversity of life that we have here. I think life is not just seeded here. I think life starts here for a lot of other places. So as we're learning about the multidimensionality of Earth, you know, so I'm going to do this little working with you. And it has to do with the undercountry. And it has to do with everything. It'll make sense when I do it. Now, what is the underworld before we start? It is the gestational reality of all that is physical. Now, a few years ago, I was teaching in Wales. He brought me over to teach at this event. The whole, it was called Shamanic Lands. The whole event was focused around the theme of the underworld, my kind of place. And so they had folkloric anthropologists there. Oh my God, y'all, I'm telling you, my intellectual nipples were up. You know, I was like, yes, oh my God. And so different people would get up and speak. And then it was time for me to come up and speak. And I spoke. And what the anthropologists were saying, and this is the skivvy, man, this is the most up to date on what the Anun is in the Welsh tradition. It turns out it is actually spoken the correct way. I thought it was Anun, and a lot of us did, is Anufin. It's Anufin. They have finally decided it is Anufin. I don't know what they based it off the smart stuff. I don't know what it was, but something, you know, told it's Anufin. And guess what? The underworld is not just the underworld of this planet. It's the underworld of the universe. So when we go into the underworld, we're going into an uprising fountain of ancestral memory, of memory that lives in the land itself. Because every particle of our world, it is all simply pieces of stone worn down over time, many of which came to this world from other worlds. The seed minerals for this world all came from other worlds. Is that cool or what? So for that which became the body and flesh of our incredible world is made up of many worlds. Now you tell me what, well, I guess we can't answer this really, but what planet has been given so much authority it could pick whatever it wanted from the heavens to build itself? The meteorites, the comet tails. She had a spice rack, a big one, to pull from, to make the body of the land. So then when we think of the underworld, we have to think that what that is we're truly pointing our eyes in the direction of our arrival. You see, life does not come from above to here. It comes from below and up. This planet, this incredible witch that we live on, the greatest witch of them all. Well, sort of. The Utterer is pretty cool too, who utters 4 stars, pretty big. This incredible planet has so much wisdom about how life is, how it's created. And you and I and every species on this planet has arrived out of the Earth's memory. We each came here as a star pulse. How could it be otherwise? We're all actually pieces of the sun. We're all animated by the plasma of the sun. Brief aside, did you ever notice that in all the mystical traditions, something being held as holy is always illuminative? Now, with illumination, they're not talking about good versus bad and all that. We've got the fairy people, and they are liquid fire. They show up on the mists. We have the jinn. They are smokeless flame. We have the angels. They are light. Interestingly, then we have humanity, and it's alternating black and white clay, is how it's spoken of in the Quran. So what they're talking about is plasma. Plasma is the universal force that the stars are made out of. The closest thing we have to the stars on Earth is fire. Why do you think our fire circles are so powerful? We have the fire in us, plasmatic light of stars, with the actual physical essence of stars flowing in our veins, upheld in water that's older than the sun. We're little universes made in God's image. The Bible got that one right because we're not made in God's image figuratively. We actually are. There was this, I don't remember the actual numbers, but it was like an analysis of some type where they looked at and they calculated the possible amounts of relationship between the stars and the planets, et cetera, for our universe. And then they calculated that. And then they looked at the human body and its neuroactivity, its neurons, its synapses, its electrochemical transmitters. And it turns out we have more light pulsing relationships in our body than what they can calculate in the universe. More. We have no idea what's inside of us. Now, before I go, I like to give this geeky stuff because I've been in the middle of working on another book. And one of the things I wanted to know was, you know, the Bible says that we were made of the clay of the earth, with this guy being breathing the breath of being into it. Now, if we go and look at what it says in the Bible about that, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. No, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. You got to look at that scripture closely. It's very honest. In the beginning was the Word. Remember me talking about that exhalation, the utterance? In the beginning was the arche, the breathing forth. And it says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So the Word, the breath of being, became God. And the breath of being turned back upon itself and ignited the first star lit on the altar of heaven. That's God being born. The God was born out of the breathing forth. It's really talking about the central sun, the first star that caused all the other stars to ignite. Now, this is so cool. I'm going to tell you about that. Through the work and the fairy seership work and the underworld work, lots of insights come into being. And I'm very vocal about them. And now we have a list of them at House of Bree. And all of them have come true. So what happens is we all know something, not because my brain is so good, it's because the brain of the land is so good, will get revealed. And one of the things in that creation story I shared was that everything was born from a black hole. Now, historically, the theories about black holes are that black holes are star destroyers. You know, they're little star Pac-Men, you know, munching on destroying stars, that they were utter destruction. And now they're looking at them and finding something different because they have located some primordial ones. And the interesting thing about the primordial black holes is they're very, very small. And these primordial black holes are where the universe was created. The great breathing forth of being. So, working with your breath is the way to unearth the silent plasmatic pulse that's inside you. You know, the illuminated brow of the saints, the glowing of the fair folk, which are the angels in the land, the glowing of the angels themselves. All of this is plasma. And you've got plasma that's right now shooting between your nerves. Because all your your nerve cells are little trees. You got a trunk called an axiom. And then you've got the branches, well, the roots and then the branches, right? And this is the presynaptic dendrites and bulbs, the postsynaptic dendrites and bulbs, which just means before the message and after the message. Right now, you are calculating vast amounts of data that the central nervous system is not aware of at all. You're calculating temperature, color of all different kinds of things. Do I feel good? Do I feel bad? Do I have a fever? Proxemics, how close am I to this? Can I hear him? Does what he's saying even make sense? You know, you've got, I could go list after list after list of neuro activities that are going on in your incredible body right now. So, and they're all doing this, sending back and forth through these little trees in our body. And those little trees, each at the tips of the roots and at the tips of the branches, are little capsules of consciousness. Now, if you know neurophysiology, which I do, I used to teach it, the end of these synaptic bulbs looks like a lotus pod that's dried. You ever seen those? Isn't it cool? And they have those little dots on them. That's where the seeds are. Well, so that's what it looks like at the end of your neurons. And each one of those little holes has electrochemical transmitters, dopamine, gamma, serotonin, all kinds of goodies. And each one of those are literally capsules of consciousness. Your body is producing reality faster than you can measure. And now, get ready for this. When they look at when astrophysicists and astronomers, et cetera, look at the Orion Constellation, which is actually a nursery for stars that are being born there daily. When they look at what a star looks like being born, or what it looks like to see a solar system also come into being, it looks exactly like neurofiring looks when the nerve endings go, because they have the electrochemical transmitters, these capsules of consciousness in our body. If you could photograph them, and they have, they look like gas, they look like plasma, fire, they act liquid, all at the same time. You can't even really call them an element type. And we still don't know all of the mysteries of it. So in you right now is the explosion of stars. The very diagram of what stars look like being born is imprinted into your body, as above, so below. Formed in God's image. Now, those old stories say that, again, the clay of the earth was shaped into the shape of human, right? Or if we go in the Greek tradition, it was actually shaped as the androgyne, right? And so this was before Zeus ordered the split. Zeus was a real butthead on that one. His reasons why he did it were not really kind to us, but the androgyne was born, and the cutting down the middle to create man and woman is where the whole rib comes from. Ladies, you are not a spare rib, thank you. Although I do love spare ribs, albeit, but where that comes from actually is the ancient Greek tradition where it was Hephaestus. Well, we were born by way of Prometheus. Prometheus creates the first sort of human being, and it was androgynous. And Prometheus is such a rascal. I love Prometheus. Prometheus is this titan that loves humanity, always fights for us. The stories about him being punished for giving us the fire, that wasn't the first time he gave it to us. And he had to be released, and was released eventually. And interestingly, Zeus instructed Hephaestus to take one of the links of the chain where he chains him to the rock so that the eagle will come eat his liver every day. Zeus was really creative on the punishment here. The reason he did that, he couldn't kill him. Prometheus is immortal, older than Zeus, to be exact. And so anyways, Prometheus forms us. Prometheus is about freedom and innovation. And so, where was I going with that? Oh, yes, it was formed of clay. And then I believe it was Athena who breathed the breath of life into us. And that's why we have the artistic abilities and the concept of refined, like our engineering, our sciences, all of these things are because of her. In the Christian tradition, it's the scooping up of the clay. Now think about this vast star being, the creator of everything, this booming divine being, but it can't create a human. It has to go to the earth to get its clay to make the human, because the earth's clay, its soil, is the digestive wisdom of everything that's ever lived. So scooping up all of the wisdom of life that the planet has to give. There's a reason that the earth is called in Kabbalistic tradition, the bride of Macroposopos, the bride of eternity. People don't look real closely at that. Why would one planet be seen as the bride of all eternity? Things that make you go, I think our earth is more special than we know. So it scoops up this clay. And then so we have all the wisdom of earth and its life-forming powers. And then a star being, a sky being that gives a plasmatic breath to it, breathes into it to give it all the capacities of the cosmos. New information, because I wanted to know, this theme shows up a lot. What does science have to say about it? In 2013 was the beginning of research to look at that. And they were looking at the influence of, well, the prebiotic origins of life, right? And because there were certain things that had to line up for life to come forward or come forth. It turns out, this is so cool, that the igniter of it, the chain reaction that happened, likely came from the heavens. It turns out that on meteorites, and this is common, there's this stuff. It's sticky, and they say it smells like oil. It's a type of enzyme. It is the jump starter of life. And likely, this is how the universe gets life started all over the place. Meteorites are like a star sperm. They're like star sperm. They come and they drop things off, so do comets. So we have this soil of earth. Well, this mineralized form of earth. And we have meteorites bringing down with this plasmatic plume of heat these enzymes. They say that it was because of the minerals of earth that the structural integrity that allows your organs to be separate from each other. Because if they leak into each other, that's a problem. So, and your cells, they have to have walls. They have to have a structural integrity. All of that came from the mineral world. So this plasmatic pulse that comes down from the heavens, bringing an enzyme, and the heat causes the poles to shift in the minerals, and then the minerals create the pathway through which life comes. So it's true, y'all. We're made of the clay of the earth with the heavens breathed into it. How powerful is that? I just want to share these things with y'all, because what I'd like for you to do when you get off here is to feel more inspired than ever. Is to know the miracle that's ever arriving as you. Now, humans, what we are, we've got to think back. Why would a universal being and an incredible ancient life-forming being conspire to create us? That's what I tell everyone. We were born of a benevolent conspiracy between the High Father and the Deep Mother. Why? Because what this means, we are expressions of them. We are waves of the eternal ocean. And this should also have a calming effect to us around death. You know, when you go to the ocean, you see a wave come, right? And sometimes it's just so pretty, right? And you're looking at that wave and it comes up, 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 and it crashes. You don't go, oh, it's dead. The wave died. This is terrible. We would think that was crazy, right? Because of course we know that the wave recedes and it forms again by the pulse of the ocean somewhere else. We are waves on that ocean. Now, funny thing, I also got fascinated by tsunamis some years ago, and I want to understand how they work. So in that case, the ocean emits a wave, right? And behind that wave is this pulse, whether it's tectonic shifts and underwater earthquakes or things like that, volcanic eruptions. So it emits a pulse, and then the ocean emits this wave that builds and builds and builds and builds. So first the ocean emits the wave, then the wave takes the ocean with it. You're like those tsunamis. First, the universe bared forth your being, and you came forth. And then you took on through your embodiment experiences, because you've been many things, velocity. And that buildup of velocity, that's the universe, but capsulated as human and you, had such velocity that it willed itself into a human form. And the human form is the most reaching hands of the planet, reaching for new destinations. Why were we born? Well, imagine this. You're the universe. You can be whatever you want, right? But the problem is that when the great universe created the stars and all that, it probably looked at it all and said, hey, that's pretty. I'm pretty cool. But it was also bored because it's inside of everything. Therefore, everything has to become whatever is willed of it, whatever the pulse was that caused it to come into being. So that means there's no inspiration. If everything just thinks like I think. If I create a universe of yes men, I would die. And so we are the part of the source that put itself to sleep so it could dream things that have never been dreamed. I have a dear friend named Sophia. She lives kind of out y'all's way. She's in Portland, and I love her so much. One of the wisest human beings I've ever known. One day we were hanging out. She was with me, and we had been teaching somewhere. And she looks at me and she says, Orion, need is holy. N-E-E-D, need is holy. And you know how sometimes you'll hear something and you go, like something holy is happening here. Like every doorbell or every ringer inside you goes off and you go, lean into this, right? There's some wisdom about to happen. She said, yeah, need is holy. And she's a Sufi. She said, need is the only thing we can give God that God doesn't have. We think of it as need. God thinks of it as inspiration. It's just powerful. What? So the needs, the desires that we have is looking through human eyes of innovation and free will. Conceptualizing, envisioning patterns that have never been envisioned before. We're here, I believe, as a human species, to be the answer to the inspiration for the universe. There may be other species like us, but of course we know free will ain't free, it's expensive. Because we can think beyond inherent balance. It's the reason we don't know some of the cool things like a spider. A spider's born, never has to be sent to knitting school. Yet it weaves the most powerful fabric or textile on the planet. They say that if a spider was as big as a chihuahua, oh my God, that spider could kill everything on this planet easily. And its web would be unstoppable. It would be able to weave threads, because you gotta remember the strength of a spider. One that big, oh my God, the strength it would have. And its web would be unstoppable. Thank God, not that big. Besides, I would have died from horror, I think. So you and I, we have got to reconsecrate our relationship. And you, beautiful ones, had the courage to respond to a pulse that you didn't understand. All you knew is like the fool in Fool Card. You had to obey, not because you were oppressed. You had to obey because you were ignited, driven by divine restlessness that the brain couldn't even identify fully. We just knew we had to study these ways. We had to become these ways. We were responding to an ancestral call. On any down day, I hope you hear these words, and that you look in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm cool. Go, yeah, I had the courage and still do for this. We're in the middle of co-creating a new chapter of Earth. We are standing in a dangerous opportunity right now because the largest extinction event in some time has already begun. The scientists have said it has already begun. Right now, we're in the middle of a very big species die-off. And it's all driven by the human hand. Now, before we go, humans are awful, humans, which we can be, but we can be wonderful too. In the old years, way back, I was looking around to find out who did this, who created these problems. You know, the corporations, yeah, they did it. Men, yeah, they did it. And you know, being a radical feminist man, gay man, is not easy. You know, not liking what you like to make love to is difficult, right? So I was mad at men. I was mad at white folk. I was mad. And then finally, I had a vision that Bree, my spirit wife, gave to me. It's no one group's fault. It's not a fault. You see, I've always felt that the apple offered in Eden, if we use that symbolic mythical tale, was actually fire. It was lightning coming down the axis mundi and uncoiling like a serpent. When we took on fire, now imagine this, these little hominids, these little sort of ape-like guys, our ancestors, they're seeing this fire happen. And they're seeing some of their people run up and try to grab some and they get roasted. And so they eat their neighbors and then they try to get some too, you know, waste not, want not. What was it that drove us to have that fire? Because fire is pretty hot. And when you don't know anything about it, you're thinking I should be able to grab it. You know, what do I do? How do I get it? I want it. Why would it want something that's watching kill things? Because something inside of it remembered it. Our plasmatic origins inside. And some would say there were other beings in the fairy tradition, we would say the fair folk. Now here's another little insight on that. So, well, before I move from there, plasma, when we received that fire, we evolved so quickly. We were able to migrate from the warm climates to the cold. We were able to fend off animals that at night otherwise would kill us. So that was like the sword of the night, or sword of light that could cut through the darkness. This is a big deal. We could smelt metal later. That's pure magic. To extract a liquid from the solid that becomes gleaming like the sun and like the moon. Whoa, this was cool stuff. But more. We could destroy the demons that were killing our people and causing them to have short lifespans, parasites in food. And more, we could cook meat and free up proteins that otherwise were not free. And that hominid brain loved it, and grow it did. And we spent thousands of years now fascinated. Well, who wouldn't be? We're discovering what we can do with these thumbs. You know what I mean? We're building, we went from to building pyramids, to vast civilizations, to technology that's taking us to other worlds. We just became fascinated with ourselves. Enchanted, the spell of forgetfulness cast upon us. And now, this is why I love us so much. Now we have to unearth what once we knew. We have to unearth the connective wisdom of what the pagan and pre-pagan ancestors knew. And once we do that, you see, Black Lives Matter and COVID are about the exact same wisdom. We are all children of one mother, sister and brother, human and other, and earth. Last I checked, we're all made of earth. We all came to life through our mothers. Our mothers are made of earth. We are children of one mother. Black Lives Matter is about acknowledging the horrors that happened to a community of people, witnessing the rage, witnessing the explosions of consciousness that happen when you're done, when you're just over this. Women, you're probably next. I'm waiting for an eruption. It's coming, because women are tired of what they've had to endure. I'm tired with you, sisters. And there's going to be some eruptions of consciousness where the women go, I don't think so, you know, and it's already started. And I love it. I love it. I love you. I love your power. And we all got to learn how to witness it for each other, to let the eruptions happen and say, yes, you should be angry. Hell yes, you're awesome. Let the explosions happen. Volcanoes are how much of the world was created. We can't be afraid of rage, because there is something called reverent rage, holy rage. And then we've got the gay issues and the trans issues. Mark my word, trans rights is the next biggest civil right. And I think it's the final whopper that's going to move us into from fluidity of gender to fluidity of consciousness. And once we get that, all the set points that we've all been taught go away. I truly believe we will be able to fix everything we've broken with our mind, and not by taking the substance of the earth and recombining it and making things directly from our mind. Because there's a lot more to us than meets the eye. But now we have got to find the connective salve, the thing that causes me to know you're just another part of me. That's from a Michael Jackson song. He was studying with Deepak Chopra, and he had that revelation, had a powerful statement, you're just another part of me. And when we can get to that place where what's going on in Afghanistan, not just to our citizens, but to women, what these women are going through, witches, muscle up, witch up. It's time to do magic to protect these women. It's time to awaken the ancestors in the soil there and everywhere and have them rise up. You see, all of us are made of the blood of the first people. Where else would it come from, right? You go deep into our ancestral memory and ding, there it is. So now we call up the primordial ancestors, human and other, to rise up and help us heal our world, and to awaken in those who are caught in the illusion of isolation and killing and harming others, to awaken in them the ancestral memory. See, we, the living, cannot do this alone, but with the ancestors and the ancestors of all earth life, we can. Now, how are we doing? We're doing okay. Are we doing okay on time? Sort of ish. So when I was a little boy, there used to be this old man, and he would come down from the mountains, you know, the Blue Ridge. I'm from Shenandoah Valley. And he'd come to see my mama. He was on his way to a farmer's market where he was selling like hay or calves or, you know, things that he was a farmer, narrow tooth in his mouth. And he would come by, and mom and he would have coffee and talk cool stuff. And then he would always come hang out with me. And he's the one who taught me my first charms, because I'm a charmer in the Appalachian folk tradition, you know, and so because I had a propensity for memorizing them. Well, I was a little boy at that time. And so sometimes I listened to his stories, not for the content, but because he had this can of ginger snap cookies. And I wanted those cookies. I had my eyes on the prize. And mom would write down things he said. And he said something that set the tone for my whole life. I was maybe 5. So I think I was just going into first grade. So he stopped by and he talked to mom, and they talked to me and hung out with me. And he, in fact, gave me the first charm that was ever given to me, which was a charm to bring rain, where you would go to a knocking rock, a rock halfway in, halfway out of the earth. You get a rag, and you would get rags, and you would get a bucket full of water, and you would dip the rag into the water while saying, I abjure the blood and all its stains to blacken the skies and witchcraft's name, to raise the wind and bell the dame and bring the rain and bring the rain. All the while you're waving this wet cloth around and water's going everywhere. And then bring the rain and bring the rain, the pelting rain. Isn't that a powerful charm? I abjure the blood means I reject it. And the reason it's doing that is, see, the cult of the Christos is a solar one. If the Christos' power is showing, right, then it's a sunny day. It's not going to rain. That's what it says. I abjure the blood and all its things. Sort of like saying, Jesus, you're cool, but back off. Just get in your lane. We got this, right? You know, I abjure the blood and all its stains. This is to blacken the skies and witchcraft's thing, calling up the foundational primordial forces. Because if we get these black clouds full of rain, hey, this is how it rains. So abjure the blood and all the stains, to blacken the skies and witchcraft's name, to raise the wind and bell the dame. That's my favorite one. It means to beautify the lady, because when it would rain, she'd get green and she'd blossom. To bell the dame and bring the rain and bring the rain. So he taught me that charm that day. He firmly rooted my life as a charmer. And then he did it as a fairy seer as well, and a witch, because he used the word witch in there. So he sits me down and he says, they call me Mike back there because my middle name's Michael. And in narrow tooth in his mouth, he goes, Mike, you got to make right with them folk. Them folk can snatch prayers before they reach the ears of God. They're the original ancestors. We're the visitors. And when we break the laws of nature, we can't go to God for help, because God don't know how. He gave the world to them. And when I told that story to R.J. Stewart, who is one of my elders and teachers and the foremost authority on Celtic fairy tradition in the world, he said there's more traditional fairy lore in that one little piece of wisdom than in most whole books. Because what he was saying, we got to make right with them folk. We got to make right with the ancestors of all earth life. There's a reason in the old ballads, Tamlin, True Thomas, when they speak of going into the fairylands, they say, in this place lit by neither sun nor moon, but by the light, the starlight and everything. In fact, it's True Thomas, where it says, on and on we rode, and we wode through rivers of blood, a boon to the knee, and saw neither sun nor moon, but heard the roaring of the sea. It's talking about on and on we rode, wading through rivers of ancestry, streams of souls crying out for redemption, because he does speak about that, on our way to the original vision of the world, in the underworld, pre-emergent, is the gestational reality of Earth, the wisdom of its ancestry, human and other. And as we go deeper, we get back into its plasmatic memory. See, the closest star to us is not the sun. It's burning at the center of our planet. And it's a bit of a visual distortion. We see things as solid, they're not. That's an illusion. All a solid is a group of atoms that are vibrating at a similar frequency, and they have an affinity, and they're holding together by that affinity. The chair you're sitting on right now, you're not sitting on it. You're hovering above it. As your magnetic field and that magnetic field is bumping off of each other, you're actually hovering just above it. One little shift in your vibration, well, it would be kind of funny, but yeah, you go bloop right through the chair, and the chair will go bloop right through you, and nobody would hurt each other because you're vibrating in two different states. We're moving to a place where we have to let go of all the things that we thought were solid, the set points of things in our mind. Y'all, we are ahead of the game by unearthing these ancient voices and working with these ancient divine beings. We've already started doing the no-nos. All of us queer folk, and the truth is everybody on here is queer. If you're a witch, you're queer. Meaning, you are odd. Queer meant odd. The old use of the word queer was very different than today.
Orion, I sure hate to interrupt you because I could just listen to you talk and talk. You have such a wonderful voice and you're very
Oh, I love
captivating.
you.
We've got about 8 minutes left.
I know that's so hard.
You're such a great speaker. I just wanted to give the participants an opportunity to potentially ask a question or two, or for you to give us any final thoughts you have on your workshop today, on your presentation.
What I'll do is I'll save that technique I was going to do to right at the end because it's pretty quick, so I can leave people with that and do the questions, I guess, now.
Yeah, so we've got one question from Andrea Joy. She says, at some point, I would love to hear what you exactly mean by our water is older. Are you speaking of the atoms of the water or something else?
I think, well, it's really not me saying, I'm just quoting, from these scientific journals. It's actual water. It's the actual water. Because remember that the water we have here came here via comet tails. And by the way, the moon, they're even looking at the moon. We used to think that the moon delivered the water, but now what they're looking at is the moon. It was not merely an asteroid that hit our planet and exploded out the Pacific Rim. And then, that substance becomes a part of that asteroid, gets caught into the spinning of the planet, and then becomes our moon. They're thinking something very different now. The moon was born out of the earth. The moon literally came out of the earth and then collided with an asteroid, a small asteroid. All this is cool. And that asteroid had ice on it. And well, so did a lot of the comet tails and things, because we didn't have a thick environment. Everything that whizzed through hit us. Now we have a thick environment, not as thick as it used to be because we keep hurting our ozone. But so my understanding is this is not figurative. It's the actual water that came here. There's never been any new water. The water we have is the water we've had. Now, y'all, Mother Earth is awesome. Just when we think we know how awesome she is, she shows us another thing. They have been finding underground seas, like seas that are bigger than the seas above, and they're fresh water. They found one off the coast of New Jersey. They found one off the coast of, I think it was Italy. So this planet has vast amounts of water that I guess she keeps in her reservoirs, tucked away. So you got to understand that this water came at times where the earth was just barely what I would call solid. It's particleizing, and then as we start to build up specifically the magnetic field, which is caused by the lava, turning in the planet, the iron, that's all from meteorites, turning in the planets and maintaining a gravitational field. Then we start to see that water stay. It moved around, it was vapor and you name it. But my understanding is this is actual, the substance water. And I hope I'm being fully accurate on how I'm describing it. But I'll try to find the article on it. If I can find it, I'll send it to someone here so maybe they could post it.
Yeah, that would be great. You can share it with me, or you can message the Puget Sound Pagan Pride Facebook page, and we can post it on your spotlight that we put up.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Let's see if there's any more.
Doesn't look like it at this time. I think everybody's pretty spellbound listening.
Oh, I love you.
You said you had one more thing you wanted to do before we wrap up. We've got about 3 minutes.
Oh my God. All right, let's do this quick. Put on your seatbelts. We're going to move to this very, very quickly. Be aware of the sun and the moon and the heavens above. The ever arriving. As we circulate on this planet, a planet going around the sun, a solar system traveling through the cosmos. We are journeying through eternity. And as we do, the star pulses are traveling through us. And one of them became you. To be aware of the sun and the moon and the ever arriving stars above. Be aware of the sacred earth below. All that we love, all that we can imagine, the blessings, our food, our water, our bodies, our house, our everyone and everything we love, given to us by the great earth. Be aware of the uprising giftedness of the earth. Let gratitude fill up inside you as you feel the pulse of the planet rising to you on a fountain of blue and silver flame, a fountain of wisdom, the light of the heavens above, the life force that rises from below. Now be aware of the direction within you, made of starlight and breathing space, the great mother and father of everything. And a direction before you, behind you, to your left and right. Behind you is the velocity of the past, is all that you have ever been, as you've been mineral and animal and plant and microbe and human and many things. All of that is the thread that runs through the pearls of your many existences. The velocity that brought you to this moment, to being what and who you are today. Feel that velocity that has brought you to this moment behind you. We are the accumulation of choices. We are the accumulation of life. Now, be aware of the direction before you, the unclaimed becoming. You sit in the now. The past behind you is the velocity of nows expended. Before you are nows anticipated. And you are magic, folks. We know we are conscious creators. Now be aware of that future, unclaimed and ready to be shaped. What does it feel like to you? Mine feels co-creative. Mine feels peaceful. Mine feels restorative to our world. Let the feelings rise up in you about the future you would claim, the future you would shape. Hold that feeling in you. You see, thoughts are how we throw the fishing line, but it's feelings, how we reel it in. Feel the presence in the future of the world we wish to create. Now to the left, rising from the memory of the blood, the bone, and the soil, are the mothers of wisdom. From the blood, they are the ancestral mothers, the witches, the priestesses, the wise grandmothers. They rise up from the memory of the world, and from the soil, the wisdom mothers in the land where you are. And from the bones are made of chelated calcium, which is the skeletal remains of other life forms. So the non-human mothers arrive, mothers of wisdom. Those three form a thread of lineage that forms and comes to you at the left. With their left hand, they place on your left elbow. With their right hand, they place at your left shoulder blade, upholding you, sustaining you to the right. Likewise, the fathers. Fathers rise up from the wisdom, the memory, the blood, the bone, and the soil as a lineage. The fathers uphold you, the priests, shamans, the unnamed grandfathers of wisdom. And with their left hand, they place at your right shoulder blade, their right hand under your right elbow. And now, upheld by those who walk in grace to the left and right, empowered by the velocity of the past, you look to the unclaimed future, and at your center, you are the cosmos and the earth come together in benevolent conspiracy to consciously create life. I want you to reach back to the velocity of the past. Take hold of it. Feel a golden cord of power forming in your hands. Feel the power of all that you've ever been. You see, you have a reservoir. You cannot imagine how much power walks with you. Take hold of it. On the count of three, we're going to cast that to the future that you feel into being. On the count of one, we feel that cord strengthening, wiggling. It wants to be cast. We feel the wisdom extracted from all that we've been building in this. On the count of 2, it's whipping around. It really wants to go. Are y'all ready? Anticipation. We feel the cord wiggling, and 3. Cast the golden cord to the future of your desire. Let it loop around that, and now we have the summoning envisioned future that pulls us towards it, and we pull ourselves towards it, and to the left and to the right. Those who walk in grace, the wisdom ancestors say to us, let go. We'll hold it in place. And they'll help keep our feet in right relationship with the directive of our spirit. And we let go. We feel
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I'll just shut it down real quick. The above, the below, the behind, the before, all come back together within us into the eternal now. May all the powers of love encompass you through all nights and through all days and in all good ways. We have now co-created an intentional future upheld by the wisdom of the undercountry. Blessings.
So motivating. Thank you so much, Orion.
Thank you. Happy Pride, everybody. Be proud of yourselves.